like. And coming from the town that I came from, there wasn't these massive booming economies. So I looked at like football as my way to be successful,
Okay.
and to create the life that I wanted.
Yeah.
A critical moment for me happened my senior year when a speaker came in, and it warped my mind for the better, changed my mindset for the better.
Was it senior year in high school or college?
College.
Okay.
Yeah, because Coach D'Antonio would always have speakers come in.
Cool.
And the speaker goes, for all you guys here, hopefully you make it to the NFL, and that's all well and good. But you don't want to be the guy playing for the Cowboys. You want to be Jerry Jones. And that changed like my mindset forever. And what is he saying? Like, there's more to life than football, and be the guy cutting the checks for these guys that you think you want to be. Like, there's bigger and more to life than just going out and playing football. Yeah. And more success than just playing football. But at the time, it's the only way you think you can be successful.
Yeah, no, based on your background, that makes a ton of sense. It really does, because your perspective is so, it's small, really, at the time. And I can totally relate and understand that completely.
Yep. And, the coaches in my camp, my family, there was a lot of excitement around the potential of going to the NFL. I think that was something that everybody thought would happen, and then would stick for, a meaningful period of time. But that conversation that we had with that speaker, like, changed my mindset forever. And from that point on, it was very much, I hope football works out, but it doesn't need to work out. And there's more to life and more success, whatever your definition of success is.
Yeah.
For me, my version of success, beyond what football can provide. And so, I did always have this entrepreneurial mindset, this business mindset. And once he did that, it kind of just opened the floodgate on what I thought was possible.
Yeah. And I think it's important for everybody watching to pay attention to the fact that you were flexible on how you were going to make it happen. Like you said, you didn't really know how this is all going to pan out, but you did know that you wanted to create a great life for yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And you were willing to be flexible in the same way that you weren't dead set on, I have to play quarterback. I just want the team to win as a whole. You just want to have a successful life as a whole. You didn't really care how it happened. Football is what you thought was the only way. You opened your mind to the possibility that it could be something else, and look where it's got you today. That's really cool to see that in contrast, like in looking back.
Yeah, no, it's and it's important for myself and for everybody. It's you have to define what success is to you too.
Yeah.
So many people, unfortunately, I think tie it to the financial side of things.
Yeah.
Because that's one metric we can all look to.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of many metrics that maybe are consideration in whatever a form of success is in your life. And so, for me, I want to be a great businessman and business owner, a great father, husband. Those two things that I just mentioned are number one. And if you can do those things, that's going to bleed into your business and your success in business. Being a great friend, a mentor now, to some people. That to me is what creates success. It's financially, that's just one component.
It's a byproduct.
It really is a byproduct of being great at all these other things.
Yeah.
Or trying to be great at these other things.
Exactly. No, that's awesome. So going back to, so we're in your senior year now at this point. So at this point, are you 100%? I guess I'm curious what your mindset was in regards to, you said your mindset changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
You saw things a little differently. Did that mean that you gave it less effort in terms of, hey, this is what I'm going to do? Were you looking at already other options when you were still going to try out in the pros, or was this is still what you were going to 100% pursue?
No,
if it didn't work out.
It didn't change my mindset, but I'd say it lifted a weight off my shoulder.
Yeah.
Which actually allowed me to probably play better and
no, that makes sense.
Work harder.
Yeah.
Going back to my original disciplines as a kid, it's like I was pouring 100% of myself into being a great teammate and an athlete.
Yeah.
And I knew if I did those things, it gave us the best chance to win. And through doing that, there was, a pretty decent, what I felt decent chance of getting either, just getting like a 5th round kind of draft grade, which really means you can go, plus or minus 2 rounds, which means you can be undrafted too. I went the undrafted route.
Yeah.
And then, I think unfortunately there's too small of a sample size, for for me as a quarterback and maybe as a wide receiver. So the opportunities didn't shake out. I go to Washington and there's a loaded wide receiver room there, and Kirk's there, which is great, and RG3 are there. And that was a great experience. Go to Chicago, another loaded kind of wide receiver room. So just nothing stuck. But I took solace in the fact that, again, I poured 100% of myself into everything that we did. And in going into that process and seeing some of my best friends that are older than me go through the process, I felt like if things didn't stick right away, that business beyond football was going to be like the next chapter.
Yeah.
Because I never had aspirations to be a journeyman in the NFL and bounce around on practice squads or go play in Canada. It was like big or bust for me as it relates to the NFL.
And you cared about the result. At the end of the day, that wasn't going to give you a great life.
No, it wasn't.
You may be in the NFL, but that was not going to give you an enjoyable life. You're traveling all over, and
if you're only, for me at the time, it was, let me backtrack. I don't think people understand the sacrifice that goes into being an elite athlete, especially in the NFL, and what that demands of you. People I think fame and fortune is, but that's for the 2%ers in the NFL. The rest are, they're fighting every day for a very nice amount of money that gets taken about half of that by the government, and then a little bit more by your agent, and then you're also not building any kind of business acumen or doing anything relative to the rest of the world when it's all said and done. So you go 4 years in the NFL, 3 years in the NFL on average, and then you come out, let's say 26 years old, 4 years behind your competition, maybe with a little bit of money in your pocket, maybe not.
Yeah.
It's like, is that really a great life? I don't know.
The longevity pieces, I feel like that's the most detrimental.
What's the toll on your body? Like, there's a lot of factors that go into that. So for me, it was a complete go big or go home type of mentality as it related to the NFL.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And this is one thing that I think could be really, really relatable for people that are there. There's tons of people that play sports, right? And play sports with a really serious passion. If you were to give some advice to some kids that play high-level hockey, high-level tennis, it doesn't matter what the sport is, could you give them some perspective on not being so dead set on that's the only way to go? Because I think that is a really challenging point that people face is, this has been my whole life. Mm-hmm. This is all I've cared about for my whole life. How do I let that go?
Yeah. Be multidimensional. So you used that word earlier and I'm stealing it, and I love that. Be multidimensional. If all you have to offer this world is just being a great athlete, then who's that really for? Like, that sounds like it's for yourself. So, and people are blessed in different ways. Some people are smarter than others, but work on that side of your game. Is if you think you can be a great businessman, work on that side, or whatever else might be. Build these other attributes to yourself than outside of being an athlete.
Yeah.
It'll end up probably making you a better athlete at the end of the day.
For sure.
And if athletics works out, great. Having these other dimensions to your life will make you more successful financially, certainly. When you think about the greatest athletes in the world, their fortunes came from the business side of things.
Yeah.
Like Michael Jordan would be the biggest example of that. Even LeBron James. Like, these guys are successful because of their business acumen and the people they surround themselves with. So, if your only identity is in sports, then I think there's a reflection point. You got to say, okay, I got to be more than this.
Yeah. And be more for the people around me that count on me, right? Because like you said, the sacrifice that comes with just being an athlete that's your life, and that's going to be your family's life too.
Exactly. So. Yeah, you owe it to your current family and your future family to be, again, multidimensional, not just be an athlete.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, on that point, I want to get into what was that like for you when you went from my whole life is football to I got to get out in the real world. What was that like? Tell me about the first year, I guess, or the first couple months after you were like, okay, I'm done.
No, it's certainly intimidating, and you're wondering if you made the right decision.
Yeah.
Because you got your people, your friends, and your family saying, "Hey, keep going," and you're kind of like, I think I'm done. And what happens for most athletes is not just like this cutoff point. It's kind of this like slow,
like
transition.
A drift off. Yeah,
you're like, okay, because you're kind of wondering, hey, am I going to get called? Am I not? Like, so you're kind of just lingering around. You're staying in shape, ready to go, but you're also kind of looking to see, okay, do I need to move on into another business sector or do something different? And so for me, that lasted about a year and a half. did a little bit of the med device stuff kind of in between. And then
that's so common with athletes. I don't know what it is.
And then was, and I was a guy that was always like ears wide open. Doesn't mean I'm going to take the advice everybody's giving me, but I'm going to listen to what other people have to say, especially if they're, successful in whatever version of their success that they're having. And so for me, I was like ears wide open. I had a finance and supply chain degree from Michigan State, which I did on purpose. I just said, listen, I got to be multidimensional. I got to have a plan B at some point. Maybe it'll be utilized. And so I was presented the opportunity to, go into finance and be an advisor. And, I came from Lowell. I didn't know what a financial advisor was. Yeah. And I'm not picking on my hometown. I'm just saying that this wasn't like what I grew up around.
Yeah.
And so I listened to that opportunity amongst others for 6 months or so. And then because it had similar to your business, a very entrepreneurial business owner mindset to that industry, I ran with it and said, hey, if it works out great, I'll pour myself into it. And if it doesn't, failure is okay too. But I poured myself into it and haven't looked back since.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there a couple things maybe in that first year that you were able to say, because it was so foreign to you, you didn't really have any experience in that world? Are there a couple things that you could say that you took in that first year from football to say, I know football. I know how to be successful in football. What can I take from this that you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Transferred directly into it.
So when anytime you join a team, initially what you're following is the leader. So the head coach or the general manager. And so in business, it's the CEO or the managing director, whatever it might be. Yeah. And so for me, I went to our leaders, and one of our leaders there at the time was Brad Seitzinger, Dave Sokol. These guys, like, they were leaders to me, who had been there, kind of done that. So I listened and took in everything that they said. They believed in me, took a shot on me. They created a playbook. My job was to execute that playbook. And then when I got really good at executing that playbook, I wanted to take it up another notch, and then up another notch and another notch, and keep pushing the limits on what was possible. And so for the first 6 months to a year, I did everything my mentors told me to do. Yeah. And some.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. I think a lot of people, especially in their early on starting years, they feel like when entering a market or entering an industry, they have to break all the walls and do everything different and be the best to ever do it and all those things. And when you're just starting off, it's good enough to just replicate what the best people are doing and just copy exactly what it is that they do.
Yep.
You can start to make your tweaks, make your changes, add your flair onto it once you've perfected what's been proven. Mm-hmm. But starting off trying to reinvent the wheel is a very tough route to go, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. And there's no reason to do that, especially early on, in my opinion. And what sports taught me, especially football, is like, until you fully understand the job of everybody around you, to go out and completely try to recreate the wheel or do something completely different is a very selfish thing to do, because you end up hurting and putting other people in a very poor position by doing that.
Yeah.
And for me, it could be my team members or it could be my family. So until I fully understand the dynamics of everything around me, I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel, to your point. You earn that right to be able to kind of change it up a little bit or reinvent some things over time.
That's a really interesting perspective how you said that, because it is so risky, right? You're going and going completely off the rails without any care of what that does to the people in the company, your family. There's so many factors of how that affects other people. So right. I've never thought of it in that way, where going about it the way that it's proven. Listen, this has been happening for a long time. This business has been here for much longer than you have. There's proven methods to how we do things for a reason. Yep. And so it makes a ton of sense that you look at it that way, but that's an interesting perspective.
Now, don't get me wrong. I do things a lot differently now 100%. Than maybe the industry standards. And, I think that's really helping us.
Yeah.
And helping our business. But that's earned over time. And that's through understanding and knowledge and work experience that allow you to kind of do those things and earn the right to be able to do those things.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, tell me a little bit about the steps that you went through. So I'm not so familiar with the financial world and what it looked like, how you scaled your business, how you were able to gain more clients. How were you able to do that? So you started your first year kind of figuring things out, replicating what you've seen work. Well, how did you start to stack successes and wins to scale to where you're at today?
Yeah. So, when you're starting your own, financial advisory business, wealth management
Yeah.
practice. I mean, there's a lot of nomenclature around that, but
Yep.
what you're trying to do is build up a business of as many clients and high quality clients as you can,
Yeah.
which over time becomes hyper focused on quality, right, of clients. But really, you have to be around long enough to earn that right too.
Yeah.
And so it's going out and executing a playbook. I knew I had to do X, Y, and Z every single day that my that leadership had kind of put in front of me.
Yeah.
So I went out to execute X, Y, and Z, and I did it over and over and over. And then which by the way are not easy things to do.
No.
And I think that's why there's like a 5% retention rate in our industry.
Yeah.
Within the first 5 years. But once I proved that I could do that in the first year, now I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to do 110% of what they're asking me to do, and then above and beyond. And this is where I go back to like looking at the impact my dad made on me or my coaches. It's like hard work wins, discipline wins, the pursuit of being better wins. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. That whole mentality. So it was like this race with myself to become better and better and better every day. And stacking up those wins has been, that's what's allowed us to get to where we're at today.
For sure. Yeah. We were fortunate to interview the owner of Jimmy John Stadium, and he explained it so simply, like from a mathematics standpoint. He was explaining how he talked to his son about, he was in a sales position, and he's like, if you work an extra hour each day, each week.
Yeah.
He's like, think about how many, he did the math, and I'm not going to do it right here because I don't want to embarrass myself, but he explained it like, look at how many more hours. You don't even have to be better. That was the biggest thing that he explained. He's like, you don't even have to be good. If you put in an extra 150, 200 hours or whatever it is a year,
it's math.
You're going to do better.
Yeah.
So it was so cool that the way he explained it in such a simple manner, where it's like, people always think you got to be so talented. Right. Everybody thinks it's in the talent. Talent really is like 10% of what it really comes down to of getting stuff done.
Right. It's a factor, but it is certainly not the only one.
Yeah. No, that's really, really impressive. Okay. So as you started to scale your business and grow clientele, at what point did you maybe think, hey, I want to start my own book of business or have my own business? And you might have to clarify what that looks like exactly, but what did that look like, that transition?
So from the beginning, you're building your own, book of business.
That's kind of what I figured. Okay.
And so, one of the things I truly believe in my life is that you're a byproduct of the people you surround yourself with, and who you surround yourself with, that will directly correlate to who you become in the end, which is a determination of how successful you are, right? And so, I was always very hyper focused on not only like the financial success of the type of clients we were working with. It was like, is this guy going to add value, and am I going to learn something from him? Is he a good father, husband?
Yeah.
Those are things that are more important to me. So I wanted to surround myself with those types of people. And if you're going to be investing your time into these people and pouring yourself into helping make sure that they win, you want to make sure your values are aligned.
Yeah.
So I became over time, very, very, very defensive of like who we were going to work with. And I'd say choosy or picky. I don't like those words, but like,
no, that makes sense.
You like safeguard your time with people. And so, our clientele is representative of that right now. I think, some of my best clients are my closest friends, which I'm very thankful for. And my business partners are some of my closest friends, and I brought them into the business. We went through a merger and acquisition while everybody's kind of running their own business, came together, high quality people coming together. That created the inception of Carrera Capital, which is our company now. And, we haven't looked back. So it's just constantly being the best version of yourself, surrounding yourself with the best people you can get you're in the door with, and growing with those people and committing to those people every day.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit, because you said something I think is really valuable. Tell me about how many times I'm sure you had the opportunity to land a big client that you were like, I don't know, because of some of those factors that you were talking about who they were, the values that they carried. Because that is the only way that you've had the longevity that you have. I can guarantee you that, because people, like you said, the quick turnover, a lot of times people are so quick to get that first win that they're willing to do anything. They're willing to take any client, right? And so can you explain the importance of that?
It's a great point that you brought up, and it's so important. One of my clients who is a very successful CEO at an automotive company that we would all recognize here locally, especially. He taught me early on. He's like, never get caught chasing the shiny toy, and that can mean a lot of things in terms of how you want to interpret that.
I know where you're going. Yeah,
what he's saying, like, stay on your path, don't deviate on your path like a train track. Stay on your path, and just because some idea or some person's out here, don't go chasing that because of the quick win. So to your point, if you land a big client, but isn't aligned in your values, or is a flight risk, or just somebody that might put you in a very bad situation, don't go chasing that shiny toy. Stay true to who you are. Stay true to your playbook. Go execute on that, and stay loyal to the people that have been with you up to that point, and that will continue to stay loyal to you. So back to choosing who our clientele is or who our team members are, like loyalty, integrity, trustworthiness, discipline, effort, all those things. That's really what I care about the most. The financial stuff all falls in line from there.
Yeah. Because you are playing it for the long game. And that's one thing I feel like has just been such a consistency in the way that you talk about your whole life. It's always been about the long game. It's always been about the future, my family, the life that I'm going to have one day is how you've always spoke about everything. Is there, why have you always looked at it that way? Because I think that's where people get in trouble, is when they're so right here about what's happening right in front of them that they kind of lose perspective of what it's going to do long term for them. Yeah. Where'd you get that thought process or that mindset?
I don't know if I have a moment that I could look back and just say this is where I got that from.
Yeah.
But my mentality always has been to be kind of a wolf and not a sheep. And so I'm not just going to blindly do what everybody else is doing. If everybody else is chasing short-term instant gratification, that is probably not what's going to help differentiate yourself. So if you want to differentiate yourself and everybody's thinking short game, maybe differentiate yourself by thinking long game. And I think sports helps you with that too, right? Because you're working 9 months out of a year. For 10 weekends. And so it was always the mentality of sports provided that long-term vision too.
No, that's a really good connection. I've never thought about it that way, because you're right. You can't focus on the one drop pass that you had, and it's really silly when you think about it. Like, people literally get upset and throw their gear and lose their minds over dropping a pass in practice maybe. Mm-hmm. When what are you there for? You're there to win the championship at the end of the year, which is 9 months away and God knows how many games away. You know what I'm saying? It's wild how that lack of perspective can kind of throw you off the rails.
Yep, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, I really want to thank you for making the time to be here today. I want to wrap things up with a couple keynotes for people to take away here. Yep. So this is going to go in two directions. So we've got your industry, and then just to generalize it. So maybe let's start with your industry in particular. So being in financial services, if you can give 3 tangible tips, so not necessarily like a mindset, but maybe a strategy or something that you did consistently that was able to, that would give someone a kickstart that's trying to get into your industry, what would those 3 things be?
The 3 tips.
Because we'll go more mindset when we're talking about grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. But in your industry in particular, what would be some quick tips of, like, if you were to go back to day one, because I'm sure you've made plenty of mistakes just like everybody did, what would that advice be to your first year self of what you would have done a little differently maybe?
You said avoid the mindset thing, because
I know.
But it's all kind of tied. But I think one thing that I know for sure helped me, and back to the comment that the Jimmy John's owner, made, or the owner of the Jimmy John's Stadium made, is it's a 24/7 job. Yeah. At the end of the day, because you're helping people. So you're taking care of people. You're not making widgets.
Yeah.
Be open and okay with that. This isn't going to be 9 to 5. Just know that you're going to be kind of on call until you earn the right to pretty much not be on call.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Be okay with that. But, and go back to, I always looked at it like my day started before 8 a.m., so like that 6 to 8 a.m., and then after 5 p.m.
Because those are the reps that count.
Those are the times that like you are building the future of your business. What you're doing between like 8 and 5 is working on and helping the business that you earned by working 6 to 8 and then 5 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it is pouring those extra hours in. I just don't know if I have any special tips outside of get comfortable being uncomfortable, because there's a reason people fall out of this business, and that's just because there's so much rejection that goes into that and so much disappointment. People that you think would be your client will never be your client. People that you don't think would ever be your client become your client.
Yeah.
There's a lot of peaks and valleys, but being kind of like a duck on water, right? Calm on the surface, but there's a lot beneath. That's kind of was my mentality, and still kind of is, right? Always be calm, and that piece that somebody can lean on.
Yeah.
But knowing that you're managing a lot beneath the surface.
No, that makes sense. And I like that point that you made about, it almost goes to the same adage of like, don't even start counting your reps until it burns, like in terms of working out.
Yeah.
Because
exactly. It's exactly right. That was the best analogy that you can give is that.
Yeah. So that's really great advice. Now let's go. And this is where we can tie it in. So when we say as a general sense, go back to the Keith that had no confidence, hadn't stacked any wins, hadn't gotten anywhere yet. What would be some pieces of advice for someone that's just getting started, has not really built any confidence yet? What would be some things that you would advise them on? It could be just joining a sport, like you said, is a big one that you think there's a lot to learn in joining a sport, right? Mm-hmm. What are some things at that level you think could be valuable to people that are struggling to get that first win? Yeah,
so confidence without question is a skill. It's not something you're just born with. And it's, self-talk and how you perceive yourself and communicate with yourself internally.
Yeah.
That's what creates the confidence. It's not, those wins and those things are just a byproduct of the positive affirmations you're making inside of your own mind.
Yeah.
And so really just, it's so cliche, but it's like you have to block out the noise. You have to block out everybody that else is around you and the haters and all those things. There's gonna be a handful of people that believe in you, maybe, but you don't need them. As long as you believe in yourself and what you're doing, and you can positively talk to yourself and know that you're going to fail, like just
be okay with it.
And be okay with it. Already, like, walk yourself through how you're gonna feel when you fail.
Yeah.
And how you're gonna react, and then you will react that way when you do fail.
Yeah.
That will create confidence too.
No, that's awesome. All right. Well, Keith, it's been amazing. I appreciate you making the time to be here today. This has been awesome. I've learned a ton, and I can guarantee you that the people at home have learned a ton as well. So that was a really
Thanks
special.
Thanks for letting me share my story. Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. So guys, I want to thank you for making the time to be here today, believing in the possibility that life can be better, and challenging yourself to grow. I believe that everybody's pursuing what they feel to be their dream life. And hopefully today you guys got one step closer. We'll see you guys next time, and never stop pursuing precision. All right, everybody. So that is going to conclude episode 12 with Keith Nichol. This was one of my favorite ones I've done thus far. His experience in sports and how he was able to translate that into business was such a special connection to me, being that I did play sports my whole life. And I think it would be really, really valuable to anybody out there that is playing sports or did play sports in their past. So I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. And I'm going to now recap the top 3 things that I learned and felt were most valuable in this interview. 1, the most valuable work that gets done is the work that's outside or above and beyond what everybody else is doing. So he explained this in sports. He explained this in business. He always tracked himself, paid attention to what he was doing that was outside of what was traditionally expected from him or what everybody else was doing. That is what he measured himself on. And by continuing to do that in sports, continue to do that in business, year after year after year after year, it has slowly scaled him to where he's at today. And I think is so much part of his identity and why he's able to get to where he's at. 2, what you see or what your vision is for the future should steer what your actions are today. I think a lot of people are very short-minded in terms of how they see their life. They see exactly what's happening right in front of them instead of taking a look at where they want to be, because that can be such a massive motivator and be able to decipher what actions you should or shouldn't take in order to get there moving forward. 3, a life in service to other people is a life that allows everybody to flourish together. If we look at this from a selfish perspective, if he only cared about himself, he would have had half the success that he was able to create over his career. He was always thinking about serving his team, serving his family, serving his coworkers now in the business that he's in. And that's allowed him to flourish personally, but also allows everybody around him to flourish. And so we always look at, what can I do? What do I want out of this situation? And when instead, if we serve others first, everybody is allowed and everybody is able to succeed together, which makes everybody happier. So those were the 3 things that I found most valuable in my interview with Keith Nichol. I hope you guys took much more than just those initial 3, because there were plenty more lessons to be learned. I'm so grateful to continue to get to interview these great individuals, and I hope you guys are benefiting from it as much as I am. Cannot wait to see you in episode 13. We've got tons of good ones coming up here soon. Never stop pursuing precision. We'll see you soon.